There are around 13,000 nuclear warheads in the world. These weapons are known for their ability to cause mass destruction and death. Because of this, nuclear war is no joke, and the threats about nuclear attacks should and always are taken seriously. On February 24, 2022, Google searches for nuclear weapons and nuclear war spiked following the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the fear of the world going into World War III. Today, there are 9 countries that hold nuclear weapons. Among them is Russia, which holds the most nuclear weapons for one single country, which has a nuclear arsenal of 6,850 nuclear weapons, while on the other hand, the second country with the largest stockpile of nuclear weapons is the United States, holding a total of 6,450 nuclear weapons in their arsenal. With this rise in fear, as well as the overall fear of a nuclear war, some may wonder which countries and who is holding the largest stockpile of nuclear weapons. In this video, we are going to highlight the 9 countries with nuclear arsenals. The first country on this list in no particular order is the United Kingdom, which has a nuclear arsenal of 225 nuclear weapons. The United Kingdom tested its first nuclear weapon in 1952. The UK had provided considerable initial research for the early conception of the atom bomb. The UK had provided considerable initial research for the early conception of the atom bomb, aided by Austrian, German, and Polish physicists working at British universities who had either fled or decided not to return to Nazi Germany or Nazi-controlled territories. The UK collaborated closely with the United States and Canada during the Manhattan Project, but had to develop its own method of manufacturing and detonating a bomb as US secrecy grew after 1945. The United Kingdom was the third country in the world after the United States and the Soviet Union to develop and test a nuclear weapon. Its program was motivated to have an independent deterrent against the Soviet Union, while also maintaining its status as a great power. Today, the United Kingdom has a nuclear arsenal of 225 nuclear weapons. Next country on this list is France, which has a nuclear arsenal of 290 nuclear weapons. France tested its first nuclear weapon in 1960. Based mostly on its own research, it was motivated by the Suez Crisis, diplomatic tension in relations to both the Soviet Union and its allies, the United States and United Kingdom. It was also relevant to retain great power status alongside the United Kingdom during the post-colonial Cold War. After the Cold War, France had disarmed 175 warheads with the reduction and modernization of its arsenal that has now evolved to a dual system based on submarine-launched ballistic missiles and medium-to-range air-to-surface missiles. In 1992, France acceded to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. In July 2006, the president stated a terrorist act of the use of weapons of mass destruction against France would result in a nuclear counterattack. In 2015, the president stressed the need for a nuclear deterrent in a dangerous world. Further, the French declared that a nuclear deterrent would mean less than 300 nuclear weapons. Today, France has a nuclear arsenal of 290 nuclear weapons. The next country on this list is India, with a nuclear arsenal of 160 nuclear weapons. India is not a party of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. India adopted the No First Use policy in 1998. India tested what was called the Peaceful Nuclear Explosive in 1974. Better known as Smiling Buddha. The test was the first test developed after the creation of the NPT and created new questions about how civilian nuclear technology could be diverted secretly to weapons purposes. India's secret development caused great concern around the world and anger, particularly from nations that had supplied its nuclear reactors for peaceful and power generating needs. Indian officials rejected the NPT in the 1960s on the grounds that it created a world of nuclear haves and have-nots, arguing that it unnecessarily restricted peaceful activity, and that India would not accede to international control of their nuclear facilities unless all other countries engaged in unilateral disarmament of their nuclear weapons. In 2006, a conclusion of a US-India nuclear cooperation agreement was approved by the IAEA of an India-specific safeguards agreement. The agreement was a waiver of nuclear support group of export restrictions for India, approved by the US Congress and culminating in the signature of US-India Agreement for Civil Nuclear Cooperation. The US State Department said it made it very clear that we will cooperate with India if India detonates a nuclear explosive device. The US had further said it is not in its intention to assist establishing an exemption for India. As of 2021, India is estimated to have a stockpile of 160 nuclear weapons. The next country is Israel, with a nuclear arsenal of 90 nuclear weapons. Israel is another country that is not part of the NPT. Israel engages in strategic ambiguity, saying it would not be the first country to introduce nuclear weapons into the regime, but refusing to otherwise confirm or deny a nuclear weapons program or arsenal. This policy of nuclear opacity has been interpreted as an attempt to get the benefits of deterrence with a minimal political cost. Due to a US ban on funding countries that have weapons of mass destruction, Israel would lose around $2 billion a year in military and other aid from the US if it admitted to possessing nuclear weapons. Israel's nuclear arsenal is estimated to be at around 90 nuclear weapons. Next country on this list is Pakistan, which is estimated to have a nuclear arsenal of 165 nuclear weapons. Pakistan is also another country that is not part of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Pakistan covertly developed nuclear weapons over decades, beginning in the late 1970s. Pakistan first delved into nuclear power after the establishment of its first nuclear power plant with equipment and materials supplied mainly by Western nations in the early 1970s. Pakistan's Prime Minister in 1971 promised that if India could build nuclear weapons, then Pakistan would too. It is believed that Pakistan has possessed nuclear weapons since the mid-1980s. The United States continued to certify that Pakistan did not possess such weapons until 1990, when sanctions were imposed, requiring a cutoff of US economic and military assistance to Pakistan in 1998. As of 2020, it's estimated that Pakistan has a nuclear arsenal of around 165 nuclear weapons. Then there's China, with a nuclear arsenal which is estimated to be around 350 nuclear weapons. China tested its first nuclear weapon device in 1964. The weapon was developed as a deterrent against both the United States and the Soviet Union. 2 years later, China had a fusion bomb capable of being put into a nuclear missile. It tested its first hydrogen bomb in 1967, 32 months after testing its first nuclear weapon, the shortest fission to fusion development known in history. China is the only NPT nuclear weapon state to give an unqualified negative security assurance with its no first use policy. China acceded to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty in 1992. As of 2021, it's estimated that China has around 350 nuclear warheads in its nuclear arsenal. Then there's North Korea, who's estimated to have around 45 nuclear weapons in its nuclear arsenal. North Korea was a party of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, but announced a withdrawal in 2003. after the United States accused it of having a secret uranium enrichment program and cut off energy assistance under the 1994 agreed framework. In 2005, North Korea claimed to possess functional nuclear weapons, though their lack of a test at the time led many experts to doubt the claim. In 2006, North Korea stated that in response to growing intimidation by the United States, it would conduct a nuclear test to confirm its nuclear status. North Korea reported a successful nuclear test in October of 2006. Most US intelligence officials believe that the test was probably only partially successful, with a yield of less than a kiloton. So North Korea conducted a second, higher yield test in 2009, and a third test with still higher yield in February of 2013. In 2022, Kim Jong-un officially declared North Korea a nuclear weapons state. And today, North Korea is estimated to have around 45 nuclear weapons in its arsenal. Then there's the United States, who is estimated to have over 6,450 nuclear weapons, 1,750 deployed, 2,050 stored, and 2,650 retired. The United States developed the first nuclear weapon during World War II in cooperation with the United Kingdom and Canada as part of the Manhattan Project, out of fear that Nazi Germany would develop them first. It tested the first nuclear weapon in 1945 and remains the only country to have used nuclear weapons in war, devastating the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Throughout the Cold War, it continued to modernize and enlarge its nuclear arsenal. Today, the United States is estimated to have a nuclear arsenal over 6,450 nuclear weapons. And the last country on this list with a nuclear arsenal is Russia, formerly the Soviet Union, who has a stockpile of 6,850 nuclear weapons in their arsenal, 16,000 deployed, 2,750 stored, and 2,500 retired. The Soviet Union tested its first nuclear weapon in 1949. This crass project was developed partially with information obtained via espionage during and after World War II. The Soviet Union was the second nation to have developed and tested a nuclear weapon. The direct motivation for Soviet weapons developed was to achieve a balance of power during the Cold War. It tested its first megaton range hydrogen bomb in 1955. The Soviet Union also tested the most powerful explosive ever detonated by humans, with a theatrical yield of 100 megatons. After its dissolution in 1991, the Soviet weapons entered officially into the possessions of the Russian Federation. The Soviet nuclear arsenal contained a sum of 45,000 warheads at its peak in 1986. And it's said that the Soviet Union built about 55,000 nuclear warheads since 1949. Today, Russia is estimated to have a nuclear arsenal of 6,850 nuclear weapons. Today, there are around 13,000 nuclear warheads in the world. These weapons are known for their ability to cause mass destruction and death. And because of this, nuclear war is no joke. The threats about nuclear attacks should and are always taken seriously. Anyway, that wraps up the look at the list of countries holding the most nuclear weapons.